You rolling? Hi, I'm Timothy Mitchell, the Practical Printer, and welcome to my print lab.
Hi, everybody. My name is Timothy Mitchell, and I am the Practical Printer. Digital printing for practical people. I'm a practical man. I've been to digital printing for 35 years. My goal is to get the job done, to get it done with the highest quality as possible because we're on a deadline-driven business. Ultimately, good enough sometimes gets it out the door. Perfect is ideal, but in a deadline business, that's not always possible. Now, I came on this show in particular, I wanted to introduce some friends of mine. This is Carl and Shelley Adams from Flash Printing Depot. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
I kind of owe them a favor because when I got into DTF printing about 3 years ago, it was completely the Wild West, and you had to figure everything out on yourself. And everyone you talked to had a different opinion. It was just crazy. And the only way you could really figure things out is you would just buy equipment from China, piece it together, and then figure it out yourself and hope you got it right. And over the years, I've met a lot of people who have helped me in the industry and connect me to people and explain why certain things are different or better than others. And Carl and Shelley have obviously been key people for me. That's why I wanted them on the show, but I also wanted them on the show because Carl and Shelley have what I think, from my eyes and my experience, is the best shaker for DTF printing on the market today. Let me explain what I think I want in a shaker. Safety, number one. If I'm going to recommend something, I have to be willing to put it in my own printing room in my basement and have myself and my wife run it all day confidently and not feel like we're damaging or endangering our health. Right? I won't recommend anything I won't put in my own home. So if you're going to run a shaker, in my opinion, I don't want exposure to the powder. The better the powder, the finer it's ground. You can get safety data sheets, and I strongly recommend only buying powder with safety data sheets. And I'm still going to handle the powder with a respirator. And then I'm going to put the powder into the shaker, and I want the shaker to be as hermetically sealed as I can get. I do not want to touch the powder past that point. I want it to circulate automatically, and I want as little of it as possible coming out into the atmosphere. Okay, it's in the shaker, it stays in the shaker. Now, after you print, you have a process going on in which you're going to have oil and Carl, what's the official term for the? I'm getting old.
We call it DTF glycan.
Yeah, glycol. Essentially it's a greasy water. How about that?
Correct.
And
Yes.
it's a byproduct of the curing process.
Yes.
And there's some concerns with it, and it's not ideal. And I go to these shows and you have these people running the shaker with no evacuation, and it's just like a steam train, like pouring it out the top of it. And I'm thinking, no, that's not going in my basement ever. So I want to have a safety process. So I want an extraction unit that everything that comes off that process goes into an extraction unit, and the extraction unit has proper filtration on it. And then over time, you turn a little knob and then, drain away the extra that goes to ServiClean, and then you continue to operate. Those are the standards that I would want. What you have done is you have built a shaker that, or specifically constructed a shaker that meets most of the expectations I'm looking for. So, and the other one is I like 24-inch shakers. I don't care what size your printer is, not unless it's bigger and it's meant to be bigger because you're running much larger materials like, say, awnings or something that's going to be like 54 or 60 inches. 24 inches your standard size. And that's largely been hammered out in the conflicts of the industry. 24-inch film, 24-inch printer, 24-inch shaker. Now you can get a 32, 29, 36-inch printer, but now your shaker price is going to go way up versus a 24, which largely gets it done. You can buy almost two 24-inch to 136. So why in the world am I going to buy a 36? It's just silly. And all of those Japanese sizes that I just mentioned, they're made because the Japanese company already makes that size, not because it makes any sense for the DTF industry. It's because Epson already has a 36-inch frame, so they just make it a DTF printer.
Okay.
You don't need a 36-inch shaker. It's going to cost you too much money. Same with a 32 at Mamaki and same with a 29 at Roland, in my opinion. So 24. So you guys have a killer 24-inch shaker with safety protocols and a whole bunch of advanced features. So I won't beat the horse anymore. Tell me about it and let the people know what you made.
Yeah, so what you're referencing is the SmartShaker. It's been at a lot of shows this year. It'll be definitely be at Printing United coming up. And like you stated, our 24-inch SmartShaker is really extremely well designed. It starts with the powder recirculation, which a lot of shakers don't have. They may have built-in filtration, but they don't have powder recirculation. Or if they do have powder recirculation, they might not have built-in filtration. But just like you said, you want a sealed unit, something that you can run in your home. So it's very small, compact, short, but just because it's short, that doesn't mean that it can't run with a four-head printer. A lot of people think, well, if I have a compact shaker, it's not efficient enough to run with a four-head printer. Ours is. So we have the built-in, we have the auto recirculation for powder. And a huge thing that we have, and we showed this at last year's Printing United, is our auto safety lid. So you speak about powder whenever you're pouring it in, but sometimes you have to get down in the bottom and get down into the shaker. You have to lift the lid for whatever reason, if you're starting your run or something like that. A feature that our shaker has that not, as far as I know, no other shaker has, is a vacuum inside. So as soon as you lift that lid, everything's gonna stop. It's gonna stop rotating the fan that pushes up against the film, and the vacuum is always pulling, but whenever you lift it, it's always going to be pulling whatever powder could be down in the valley. So whenever you have to lean over your face, you're going to hear the vacuum because you're going to press on suction whenever you start it up, and it's just going to be, so you're never going to see around our shaker, you're never going to see that cloud of smoke. You're never going to see powder everywhere. You're just not going to see it because built inside, we're always thinking of that. So
Right.
as soon as you close the lid,
Can I just add that
Yeah.
DTF shows seem to highlight almost like the worst possible handling practices from people who are selling. The people selling DTF printing are exhibiting the worst conceivable materials handling practices before my eyes and then saying to customers, buy from us. I find that fascinating.
it's
But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, even with workflow, and I'm explaining the workflow because the practices that you're talking about. Whenever I see people at the shows, and I guess they have to, but they're showing the workflow printing to a roll. Unless you're doing one large customers, you're not printing to a roll. You're going to print to a table so
Right.
you can cut the transfer out and get it out as soon as possible. But again, so once you put the lid back, your process is going to continue. You can run our shaker in manual, you can run our shaker in auto, but there's a sensor at the bottom, and so whenever your film comes down and hits that sensor, it tells the shaker to move forward. Now, do other shakers have that sensor? Yes. Are all sensors created equal? God, no. Especially those IFAR style shakers with the built-in filtration, they had the sensor in the front, and you would have to run your buffer in your film first, and then it would come down and then go up, and it would tell the belt to advance. But not all sensors are created equal. Our sensor is inside, and our sensor, if the sensor is like this, it has a little hood on top of it to block the powder that lands. This way the sensor always stays clean.
Ah, very nice.
Yes. so
Seems
so
to me there's several big evolutionary steps in this industry. One was
yes.
somebody figuring out a way to run white ink that wouldn't clog a Epson 3200 series printhead. And that's evolved tremendously to now sediment-free white ink that really has no issues along that line. And the second is almost all the early generations of shakers were crap.
Yeah.
I
Very
mean,
bad.
if you got one that ran consistently, just like put a wall around it because, like, you should charge admission. Um, there are so many shakers I can tell you right now. Like, people should send photos in of all of their DOA shakers that are like sitting in some garage or out in the backyard rusting. That the boards went out or whatever the problem was, the servo motor, and the company they bought it from is out of business or moved on, or they can't get any parts for it. And it was just like a DOA shaker. Well, guess what happens next? Okay, now you got a dead shaker. Now your printer is going to clog. Because a printer, without a shaker, you can't print. Printer sits idle. 3 weeks later, you're putting up a new shaker, but you haven't run the printer in that time. And depending on the quality of your white ink and your circulation system, okay, well, now you have a white ink. Now the white ink printhead is toast.
Your dampers are
Okay,
clogged.
your
They've been
dampers are
sitting.
clogged.
Yeah.
Right. So now, because you have to run all the time, but if you don't have a shaker, what are you going to do? So that was a very common link, because they're related to one another. They have to both work at the same time. And to me, that was a huge thing that the industry just said, especially, the Japanese manufacturers said, oh, no, 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 no. We just make the printer. Yeah, but the printer doesn't work without the shaker. Without the film, the powder, and the shaker and the heat finishing, it's all pointless. There's no product. If I have a latex printer, I can load banner on it and it comes off the printer and that's finished and done. And I cut it and so it's finished. In this case, it's like dye sublimation. No, you've just done the transfer paper. You still have to run it through a calendar press and then transfer that onto the fabric. And then you have to finish the fabric and all these other steps. DTF is a workflow. And the shaker is a critical piece of the workflow and one that everyone treated as an afterthought from my experience. Dead shakers everywhere, pissed off customers everywhere. Everyone wanted to get into business and they all bought. What did they buy? The AFAR shakers.
Correct. With the built-in
There were
filtration.
40 people selling shakers with different colors and it's all the same shaker.
All the same. That's a fact.
And you guys have a warehouse of them, like you're selling it. Like
Yeah, we do.
Discount.
Yeah, we do.
I saw you guys crushing one, like in a
Yeah, the crane. Yeah,
the crane. And I thought, boy, a lot of people would like to do that to their poor old crappy shaker.
it's
So
unfortunate.
you guys stepped up and made a real shaker,
Yeah,
like just to
designed it.
complement a real printer
Yeah, correct.
and real white ink and real film
Yes, sir.
and a real software and
Yeah,
profiles.
Dev Studio.
Dev
Dev Studio.
Dev Studio, right?
Yeah.
So, from what I understand too, your shaker has features where you don't have to put it all the way over to the take-up reel.
No, not at all. Because of the two
Like some
vacuums.
of the shakers I was seeing when I was in, I won't say where, but major manufacturers. I'm like, you're gonna waste all that just to get your first print done? I said that's a lot of wasted material. That stuff's not cheap. What's up with that? Well, crappy shaker. Well, can you go get another better shaker that doesn't do that?
There's $10,000 shakers out there with no belts. And I'm like, what? Like, it's just mind blowing because you need a belt. It's required, right?
Are there still
So,
a ton of dealers selling really low grade dog food shakers?
well, this specific shaker that I'm talking about is supposedly made here in America, or at least assembled, and it doesn't have a belt. You have to run it to a take-up reel. So, and then now there's like a new attachment and all this other stuff, and I'm like, so you have to spend 11 grand in order to
How
get
much
your
are you
shaker?
wasting to get to the take up reel? 5 feet?
At least.
More?
5 to 10.
Yeah,
right?
5 to 10 if you're not
Right.
running a buffer. Yeah.
Because when I worked at HP, we had the latex printer. I had to roll it forward on some medias, and man, people
Yeah.
complained about like a foot and a half. So I would attach things to the front of it, so with a leader and things like that, so that we wouldn't waste materials. Because it became a growing chorus of malcontent.
I have
that
a
I'm
video.
wasting. I can't print from the pinch rollers, and I'm wasting. So if you're saying that there are companies where you're still expected to waste all this material to the end of a shaker every time you run a job, then really that's almost like a built-in loss that you put it on there, and then you almost have to
Yes.
just keep running until you blow the end of the media, because otherwise you'd have to start that dumb process all over again, or you have to tape a leader on.
Exactly. I have a accurate video, and I measured it by my phone length. This is all the film that I wasted. This is it. Because at the end of it, see, people think that you're just wasting film at the beginning. But if you don't have the right vacuum system like our SmartShaker has, which is a vacuum in the front and in the back, well, when it gets when it gets to the end, it's just gonna fall off.
Yeah, it's just gonna
Especially if
flop
that take-up
down.
reel is pulling. Say that again?
Yeah, it's just going to flop right down.
It's
There's
just
no
gonna
vacuum
flop right
holding it.
down. And then if it sticks because it's still hot, you just ruined all that. Now you
You
gotta
just ruin the
start.
end of it. That's right.
Now you gotta
Right.
start all
And it
over.
is going to stick. That's exactly
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
You gotta give
You're
it
going to
like
have a
4
trash print.
seconds. Yeah. So these are the things that, we, from the beginning, we tried to with IFAR. We tried to with ROM. We tried to help re-engineer that IFAR shaker. They wouldn't move. This shaker was specifically designed to address every single current problem. The printers caught up. The Chinese printers started here. Now they caught up, but the shakers never did.
Right. And it doesn't matter how sophisticated your printer is, because if your shaker's crap, it limits your whole workflow.
100%. Yes.
And like there's a workflow, and the shaker is the critical. It is just in dye sublimation, in my opinion, the calendared press is the most important part of the workflow. There's all kinds of dye sublimation printers that can print to transfer paper very successfully, very high quality. Once it's on a roll, now you have to take that paper, move it over, and marry it to your fabric. Your handling of the paper and your handling of the fabric, the evenness of the rollers, all of that is critical to success. Otherwise, color is different here from over there. It bunches up into the pinch rollers. Just things don't work right. So it has to go through clean, and that's why people pay ultimately real money to get a Cleaverick or a Monte Antonio or a Practice, because that's what's necessary to get the job done. That industry knows that. It seems like the shaker is that problem in the DTF industry, and the higher quality shaker is worth every dime of it.
And it's higher quality, but our cost for the 24-inch with powder recirculation is not any more than any of these other ones. Now, can you catch a deal? Like if you were to say, hey, Carl, I want one of your 20 IFAR shakers. Yeah, we're going to sell it to you at the very
Right.
cheapest
But I don't want
price.
that shake. I don't
But
want
you don't
that
want
shaker.
it. It's 6 months, it's out of here.
And you
I
don't want to
promise
sell
you.
it, really, do you?
Yeah. No, really, no, we don't, because we don't want the headache. That's the reason why they're still sitting
Yeah, well,
there.
you sell it, it doesn't work, or something goes wrong, and the customer's complaining, and they're unhappy, and they're on the phone, and you're like, wouldn't it have just been better if I sold you this completely upgraded shaker
Yeah,
that addressed all the issues that you're currently
correct.
having with this IFAR shaker?
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, I congratulate the two of you. I love the product. I love the design. I love the work you're doing online on social media. Um, I would, it's the only one that I would pair up that I'd recommend to my friends. Now, there's other shakers that I think are also quite good, but this is the one that really stood out for me. I think it has all the pieces. It has everything that is offered currently to address a workflow for the shaker and how you would run film through it. And I think your safety focus is the main one for me, because that's the main concern I have with the whole DTF process, is the safety of the operators. And I'm not alone. I've talked to a lot of chemists. I have talked to a lot of people who are like masters of DTG and screen printing and other things, and they've looked at it and said, these are our safety protocols, and they include goggles, gloves, respirators, loading in powder. They're very meticulous about the way they control the DTF process to ensure the safety of the operator. And I think it's necessary. I mean, it's just something you do. And you guys have built a shaker around those premises, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So
Yeah.
good for you guys.
Thank you.
I wish you all the
Appreciate it.
luck in the world and your shaker venture, but also your printing. And please, I would love to have you on the show anytime.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Absolutely, guys. Take care.